Hi everyone and welcome to the first East County H12 Baseball Report. I'm Ramon Scott. Dave Dickens of EastCountySports.com. Foothill Christian High's Jelani Brown joins us as our first guest on our first show. Let's start it off with our first new feature of our podcast, the East County Top 5. Dave, I've got Helix as the number one team. You and I both voted. We're the only guys that vote in this poll. Helix was our unanimous number one. They're the preseason number 6 in the coaches poll. They're likely up to number 4 now with a 4-1 start, including wins over Madison. They have a rematch with number 1 Eastlake tomorrow in the Aztec Foothiller final. By the time people see this, that game will probably be played, but that's going to be on Saturday. The Titans won the first one rematch on a walk-off, so already some big-time performances from Helix. Brandon Peterson, Zach Owens, Eric Snoko. What do you know?
Well, I'll tell you what, Helix is like a machine. I mean, we get it from the football, we get it in the basketball, we get it in the baseball. You got one of the better coaches also in the league, and I mean, he's been doing a fantastic job with them. But really, it's just a complete team effort. I don't want to single anybody out yet at this time, but we will go to our number 2.
Yeah, sure. I think Coach Holland has got it going over there in Helix. They play Madison, Saints, and Eastlake in the Bill Dickens GMC Classic starting next week. Grossmont, we voted them both number 2. They were a preseason top 20 team, but have likely moved up to the edge of the top 10 after that big tie against Eastlake, 6-6 last week in 10 innings. They also have wins over top 20s. Christian, also Vista. They're led by a freshman, Keani Valdez, who's hitting .471 so far. Jesse Garcia, he's got a couple of homers, batting .400. Team ERA so far of just over 2 with guys like Jack Hyde, Tyler Parents, Chris Giovango. What do you got about the Foothillers?
Well, I'll tell you what, Jordans do a fantastic job out there, and as everybody knows, my dad, Bill Dickens, was a Foothiller himself and actually was a backup catcher for Brian Sipe, which went on to play for the Aztecs. I like what Jordan's doing, and after that big game that you were referring to, the big tie, due to lighting, they called it a game. But there's so many stars over there at Grossmont. You touched on them. I would like to touch real quick on the Eastlake. You know, Eastlake beat quite a few teams, but let's not take away credit from Christian. Christian actually was down by 3, and they came back in the bottom of the 6th and to rally to lose 6-5. So to lose 6-5 to a top team like that, aren't they number 1 in the county?
Yeah, well, in fact, you mentioned that, and I just want to mention as we go on to Christian in just a moment that who does Grossmont get to play in the opener of the GMC Classic? None other than the Eastlake Titans. So check out that ball game on Monday. You mentioned Christian. You voted them number 3. I voted them number 4. People might think we're crazy because they're 1-4 so far, but consider their losses, Jelani. You know these guys are Eastlake, Madison, Grossmont. These guys are all top teams. But hey, let's look at the win. Luke Rinkoff's. He pitched a no-hitter against Modern Day Catholic. He was great in that game. He got that incredible catch by Matt Armijo in center field. He made that incredible catch after he kind of took a circuitous route, made the brilliant catch, saved the no-hitter. Unfortunately, Matt has gone down with a serious ankle injury just a game later, and he's going to miss up to a month, you told me, possibly 3 or 4 weeks. Christian's going to have to rely on guys like Garrett Nielsen, the leader offensively, and Jacob Beck, who's also off to a nice start. They're going to play Madison, Scripps, and Eastlake in the GMC. You've seen Christian twice.
Yeah, you know, Mike Mitchell always has a great squad to work with, and I will say that it really hurt them losing that center fielder. But I'll tell you what, they still got some pretty decent pitching. Brad Jeremiah has thrown pretty decent. They are going to have to rely on their seniors, though, like Brad Jeremiah. Garrett is a wonderful hitter. I mean, he had one bad game the last time out. But other than that, and let's not forget his younger brother, Trevor Nielsen. He is actually a freshman, and he's looked real good coming out of the gate. So there's not real big names out there, but Christian has been in every game up until the last inning. So I picked him 3. Sorry, James Davis, but I think Christian is getting better.
Well, Well, yeah, let's just give them the nod because of what they've done in that incredible schedule. And the Eagles have lost a couple of games. Let's talk about them right now because they're tied for third in our two-man poll because I had them third, you had them fourth. Granite Hills, they were the preseason number 8 in the county. They may have just slipped out of the top 10. We'll see. The poll's going to come out on Monday after these big tournament games this week. So they have losses to number 5 LCC and now a top 10 team in Poway. No top 20 wins yet, so that may be why they're down a little bit in our little poll here. But they host Madison, another top 10 team, in the GMC Dickens Classic on Monday. You're very fond right now of Bradley Harris. He was a reserve last year, played in like 11 or 12 games, hit 229. This year, he's going to look like he's being all East County first team the way he's going. 529 start, 8 RBIs. Also, I look for Trevor Hazelhurst to bounce back this year after maybe he was expecting more last year. He's already a 2-game starter, 1.73 ERA. They play Madison, Monta Vista, and Scripps in the Dickens Classic.
I think that they'll easily, and I'm going to go out on a limb, and I think James Davis and his squad are going to go out and they're going to take at least 2 out of 3 for sure. You mentioned Hazelhurst. I mean, he had a tough offseason. Granite had a tough offseason as a whole. You know, for them to be playing the way that they are with the losses that they had in the offseason is phenomenal. I do pick them eventually. I'm hoping that they will reach the number 1 mark because the way that they're fighting through their games. I mean, they only lost to La Costa Canyon by 1. They got blown out by Poway again, but they are one of the top 10 teams, so that has to be expected. But they have some good pitching. TK's been fantastic. And then who was it yesterday? Parker. 4 for 4. I mean, just knocking the socks off the ball. And then again, they have somebody that people forget. Tom Fordham used to play a big quarterback and pitcher out of Granite Hills. Well, his son Clay Fordham, he's been coming in relief. He had a nice save just this last game, and he's been pitching phenomenally too.
And number 5, I guess it's going to be no surprise. I mean, that's why we got Jelani Brown of the Foothills Christian Knights in here. We put them at number 5 in our poll. Maybe it's a surprise to some of you. Maybe it's not. We know that the Foothills Christian Knights have been building this program a little bit, and now they've got a little bit of salt, if you will, with the young players, as well as some veterans like Jelani and Trevor Smallwood. First, I want to talk about they're going to play tomorrow morning when we're doing this podcast. They're going to play Del Norte in the Bullies Championship game. I believe you already played them once, right? And so by the time you folks see this, that game's probably already going to be played. We're not going to ask Jelani to comment on that, other than the fact that we know we're going to go out there and beat Del Norte tomorrow, beat those Nighthawks. But Jelani, you're automatic 2 hits a game right now. 5 games, 10 hits already. That sounds great. 500 average. What's been the key to your success? You were certainly a fine hitter last year, even better this year.
You know, I try to stay up with my peers and stuff, and I try to be as good as I can and not play down to other teams.
Sure, and you and I want to mention also Trevor Smallwood, a senior on the team. You guys have so many young players on this roster, freshmen and sophomores, but what are you and Trevor doing specifically to bring these guys along and kind of catch them up to speed? Obviously it's working right now because those guys are contributing big time.
Yeah, we help them out when they need it, and if they do something wrong, we will tell them what they need to work on and stuff. But we also have other senior, 2 more seniors on our team that also contribute, and also 1 more other junior. You
got to tell me who they are. I mean, I know who they are, I hope. But
yeah. So we have Chris Dollard. He's one of the seniors. Also, so we have Trevor Bailey and Chris. So those are the 3 main seniors. And for the juniors, it's me, Jelani, and we have Preston Saccone. And so that's the upper class. And then for the underclassmen, we have, the rest is all freshmen, so we have 9 spots to fill, and we have only a couple upperclassmen. So.
Dave, you mentioned a very interesting and a fun story. I'm sure some people read about it already, but tell me about Jelani's secret at the plate.
Well, you know, I actually wanted him to tell the story himself of how he got his nickname. Seaweed. You want to enlighten us on that?
Seaweed?
Yeah. So, I would bring snacks to our practices and games and stuff, and seaweed was one of them. And our coach would always ask me like, why are you eating seaweed? And I'd just be sitting there just eating seaweed, and like that was my thing. And then after Olympian game one time, he asked me if he wanted to try one, and so I gave him some and picked one out of the box, took a bite, and he thought it was the most disgusting thing he ever had.
Well, I wanted to bring some seaweed in here and make Jelani try it, but I didn't want him to make me want to try it, so I skipped that idea. One other guy I want to ask you about your team, because you guys at the top of the line are doing a great job right now, but Corbin Harris, who's hitting .467, what kind of things are you guys seeing together when one's on the base and one's at the plate? You got some signals, you guys are running a little bit, or is it just contact and let's get the base paths going?
Corbin's a really good player. He's a sophomore, so I count on him on base, and he's just been doing really well so far. And I like his contact with the ball. He can drive the ball really well. He had a triple last game, scored me in from second, and he's been playing really well.
Dave, you have anything else on the Knights? Because I have another question I've been dying to ask Jelani.
You go ahead, and I'm preparing mine right now.
Well, such a unique place to play out at Verona Stars Field, but it's so far from campus, and is it a bigger ballpark than others, or is it the maintenance is a little different, if you will? Is it an advantage, a disadvantage for this team? You got a home park, there's no doubt about it.
I've been playing there since my freshman year, so I'm kind of used to it, but it's definitely a bigger field, so our freshmen and sophomores are not used to like a big field, so we have to adjust them to that. And it seems like it's further, further on the field, like from first and second.
And how does it affect your outfield play, and how are the winds up on the reservation? I mean, is it normal, or is it because of the elevation up there? The wind's tricky at all for you outfielders?
I feel like the wind will definitely move the ball and have it turn and spin a different way, but you have to get them calculate how it's going to spin and where it's going to be, and use your good judgment to assume where the ball's going to be and lay out if you can.
And how about your catcher? You want to say a few words on Jack Wirtz? I mean, from what I'm told by Coach Lewis, he's one of the best catchers in the league, and he really helps the pitchers out. They really like pitching to him.
Yeah, Jack Wirtz, he can stop a lot of balls. Our last game against Mount Miguel, he did really well. There was a bunch of balls in the ground, and he stopped a lot of balls. And his arm might not be the best, but he's definitely working on it, and he's contributing to the team.
And he had to play through the trenches too, because wasn't the field pretty torn up after a rain? Because we had a rain a couple of days prior. No, wasn't it even raining when you guys were playing that game?
Yeah, it was raining a lot, and it started sprinkling at first, and we're like, we're gonna get this rained out. It's getting rained out, and I thought they were gonna call it because it was kind of raining a bit, but we stuck through the whole game, and the infield was getting pretty muddy, and so he had a tough time behind the plate, I'm assuming, because the balls would hit the dirt, and it would make the ball go weird, and he would have to make his body in front of the ball more, and he'd have to stop everything so the ball wouldn't go into the backdrop. And we have that field has a really big backdrop, so once the ball goes back, it's like the guy on third is going to score.
You could get two bases, right?
Yeah, you can get two bases. So that's one of the things we have to adjust to, is the huge backdrop.
And one last player that I wanted you to touch on, it is one of your younger freshmen, seems to be having a pretty good year so far in closing the games out, in Kip Famularo?
Famularo?
Yeah.
How am I saying? Famularo, I'm saying.
Famularo.
Okay.
Sure. But Kip's actually a really good kid, and he's really good at his sport, and he's probably our best catcher, I would say. But we put Jack in our catcher spot to have him switch out sometimes. So we put Kip at third because he has a really good arm, and he can play pretty much everywhere you want to put him, and he does his job.
And then he closed it out on the mound against Castle Park just last game. So so he can pretty much he's a jack of all trades.
Yeah, he's a pretty good kid, and his arm when he pitches on the mound, I think he kind of comes from the side, so he has a little whip to it. So I think that kind of throws the batters off.
That's a secret weapon, if you ask me. If he can play as a utility player and then also go on the mound and close them out like that.
Yeah.
We're going to ask Jelani to stick around, and appreciate you coming by, Jelani. Great insight on the Knights this year, and obviously a little better start this year than last year. It's going to be a good season, I think, up there. I want to say at Verona, up there Verona Field, but other than on Dryden Road for the Foothills Christian Knights. Dave, we're going to run through. We're running out of time already here. We're at H12 Academy in El Cajon off Old Highway 80. Great facilities down here. Batting practice going on over here. Instruction going on over here. Give Scott Hoppy Hopgood a call. Come on down here to H12. Let's run through these other teams real quick. I'm going to have Jelani stand by because he's going to talk about Mount Miguel at least. Tell me how good they are. You guys played them later. But first I want to go with El Capitan, Dave, if we could. Losses so far to Poway, LCC, and Granite, so they're playing a tough schedule. Senior Shane Cunningham batting .429. Senior Hunter Markle, maybe he'll move up in the lineup, batting .300 so far. 6 runs scored, even though he only has 3 hits. And also Anthony Benedetto, he had a 2-run triple in the win over Santana. So El Cap's going to play, I believe, Eastlake, Bonita Vista, and Saints in the Dickens Classic. I'm not sure on that one. I'll have to check it out. Dave, you have anything on El Cap?
Well, the game today, they actually had a game today, and again, Poway's just tearing up the Grossmont Conference. They lost 7-3 today in Poway, but I mean, really, they're always, from what they're saying is Nick Salafia is the big key for Poway, and he wasn't surrendering anything. I guess the El Cap at one time wasn't even able to hit, and they got their early runs, but they can never recover after that. But I think El Cap, once it comes to league, I think El Cap's going to be probably second or third.
And next up is Santana. Of course, they did play El Cap in one of the teams early on, featuring 2 East County teams. Santana won their opener in a walk-off over Hilltop, but since have losses to LCC, Poway, and Granite, and of course that El Cap game. Santana's led by seniors Josh Odewalt and Landon Wood. They're going to open with Scripps Ranch on Monday in the Bill Dickens GMC tournament. What do you got on the Sultans?
Well, you know what was funny is I was talking to the coach, Ledesma, and he was telling me that Odewalt actually last year was only playing defense at third base. So he wasn't even actually starting as far as hitting. His hitting ability as opposed to his defense and his throwing arm, obviously because he's a quarterback as well. But now they're trying to use him full time, and he struggled a bit though in his last outing. I believe he only went 3 1/3. They're hoping for good things for Odewalt though. And again, like I said, I think third base as opposed to pitching. I think pitching would be more his cup of tea, being a quarterback.
I'm going to move on to Monta Vista now. They went 3-2 in the Sweetwater Invitational. Sophomore Abraham Sanchez threw 5 no-hit innings of relief on Thursday. He had 8 strikeouts. The Monarchs beat the Red Devils at their own tournament. Also, junior John Gully, he's hitting .333 so far. And freshman Eric Arambula, he has a team-leading 4 RBI. They're going to face Mater Dei, Castle Park, and Sweetwater in the Dickens Classic.
They should be able to take care of at least 2 out of those 3 games, Mater Dei being one of them. And what were the other 2?
Castle Park and Sweetwater.
Castle Park.
So that would be a very competitive bracket in the Dickens GMC. Next up, Jelani, Mount Miguel. I don't know if you saw this, but Nico Camacho, one of probably their best pitcher right now. He had a 5-hit shutout over Tri-City Christian with 7 strikeouts, and his 2 appearances so far just a 0.53 ERA. And junior Cameron Bozek had a monster day, 6 RBI in a 15-6 win over Hoover. But we know that Foothills Christian, I mentioned to you, we were talking about it before the podcast here, how maybe they're kind of on a level with you guys, I think, competitively. A lot of those teams in the Grossmont Valley, you guys probably could compete in that league. It's going to be a hot league, but you guys beat Mount Miguel 5-4. What do you remember about that game?
Well, when we first got there, they were really organized, and it was I was really nervous to play them because, you know, when you go there and the teams are just like organized and they can play catch well and they're just, you know, you can see them warm up and batting and stuff. And I'm just watching them. I always watch them to see how, because as you warm up, you can tell how a team is well as they play.
You're watching out the corner of your eye. You're throwing the ball and you're looking across the field, how big their guys are.
Yeah, I'm just like compared to their guys and our guys, and I'm just always watching to see if we're evenly matched or like, you know, if we're gonna like lose this one.
And you know, Frank Coit does a fantastic job. He actually was at Granite Hills quite a few years, so he kind of took that system and adapted it, the Granite Hills system, and brought it over to Mount Miguel. So that's probably something that you did see was because of the way Frank does his business with his team. He is very well organized, and he said it did take quite a bit of time. I mean, this is his second year over at Mount Miguel at the helms.
Okay. Steel Canyon is off to a 1-3 start. They're led by seniors Josh Esquibel, a veteran there, and junior Richie Pedrin. So far, they're hitting a combined .454 so far this season. They're going to play La Jolla, Mira Mesa, and Patrick Henry in the Dickens GMC Classic. Anything on the Cougars? Looks like, you know, they're still Steel Canyon. I still expect them to get some wins this season for sure.
Well, I mean, he took a pretty tough one the other day, but Trevor Back took the loss against, I believe it was Murrieta, but they have said pretty good things about them, or about him, I should say. And we got Matthew Brinkmeyer, Carlos Camacho, Trevor Dickey, Sebastian Granados, Josh Esquibal, Danny Yanez, and Noah Nadu. And they actually all hit against Murrieta Valley, but they did take a loss. 6-1.
Noah's a good pitcher too, and he'll pick up plenty of wins along the way, I expect. West Hills, they're just 1-4 so far, but they did get a 5-0 victory behind Kai Dennis's 2 RBI and a complete game from Gavin Condra. They're going to play Sarah, Claremont, and a rematch with Coronado. They lost to I believe 5-0. Mickey D's going to have them play in the Bill Dickens GMC Classic. Anything on the Wolfpack?
Well, you know, from talking to Mickey Deutschman, who was one of the premier coaches in the league and does very well with the Stars as well, he had a lot of good things to say about the Sandy Cedar game. They did drop it 3-2. He said there's a lot of youth, and he really doesn't quite see everybody that he has put together is organized yet, but he does say that he has, what was the word he used? He expects excellence out of this young team, and he said by the end of the year that you will look for big team wins from West Hills, and we will be entertaining, was his quote.
Coach Mickey D expects excellence out of me, you, and everybody else, that's for sure. Okay, Valhalla, they're 0-4 so far, but a tough schedule. And listen to these losses. Cathedral Catholic, Rancho Bernardo, Ramona. It sounds like they're just playing the top 10 at this point, so obviously they're going to even up this record by the time this regular season rolls around. They've got talented seniors, Cole Howard, Jacob Barba, and sophomore Kyle Casper. He's on the players to watch list in the UT this year. They were in a game this afternoon against RBV, and they were losing 5-4 late. I don't have a final on that. They're going to play Christian, Henry, Point Loma in the Dickens GMC Classic. Valhalla.
You know what? I think that's a good setup for them for their first game in that too against Christian. I think they will match up well, and I actually am going to say that it's going to be a close one, but Christian's going to take it.
And finally, I wanted to mention, we can't wait for that game, Valhalla and Christian, by the way, yeah, no doubt about it. El Cajon Valley, they lost their opener to High Tech. I want to give a shout out to my friend Kai Satterstrom of the Bruins. He had 2 triples in that game. He's a player much like you, Jelani, with a lot of great speed and a good fielder as well. Coach Thomas said better days are going to come for the Braves. What happened there, or what's going to happen for the Braves? They got some players.
Yeah, they do, and it was a tough one that they lost. I mean, I told him I was supposed to make it out to that one. I did not, but he said this was probably something we need to build on, but they really took a shellacking, unfortunately.
The Bruins got 8 runs in the 3rd inning, so let's not look too much into that score. They'll play some competitive games. Want to thank Jelani Brown for coming down to the H12 Sports Academy. Also thank our other sponsor of the show, Al's Sports Shop, Dave Dickens. First time out of the books. We'll get better. I don't know if we can get a better guest than Jelani, but fun time here. I'm going to go take some hits in the cage here, maybe get some hitting lessons from Jelani on my shot to right field.
That works.
All right. For Dave Dickens, Jelani Brown, I'm Ramon Scott. Thank you for joining us. Catch us again next week on the H12 East County Baseball Report.